Imagine knowing exactly what your students are learning and exactly which steps you need to take next.
Join us in Down with the Reading Quiz to craft meaningful and productive formative assessments that move away from gotcha moments of basic recall and toward assessing what your students actually can do.
In this 30-minute free masterclass, we'll share 3 powerful assessment keys that work for any novel at any time of the year.
Head to shop.bravenewteaching.com/masterclass to sign up, and we'll also send you a free workbook to keep track of all your notes.
Once again, that's shop.bravenewteaching.com/masterclass to nail formative assessments forever.
Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching, and welcome to a little bookie reading update. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, bookie reading?
Okay. Listen, it happened, and I'm not taking it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you
coming
say
in hot,
so.
aren't I? Well, I feel very strongly about bookies and reading and updates.
I have to say, I have had, since we've started doing these episodes, I have had like the reading year of my life. I have read so much, and I don't know what it is about the fact that we do these updates often that's like exciting about it, or if that's changed, or I'm just having a good year. I don't know.
I think it's like yes and, right? Like we're talking about it, so it's keeping it present of mind, and it's getting you excited. And you joined a book club, so that's part like,
yeah. Well, that has not been the best of my reading. Let's just say that.
No, but it's just like we tell our students, it's the practice of reading that gets you into reading, that then begets more reading and reading and reading and bookies.
And bookies. And speaking of the struggles, right? I spoke with Abby Gross on episode 140 very candidly about my struggles to keep up with reading lots of books during the school year. And we actually had her on happy hour during the month of September. And she has this really cool resource called Book Brochures. And basically like the brochures let kids take a personality quiz and it matches them with a book. And I was just telling Marie, man, that to me is such an amazing solution to the problem that I always had, which was reading a lot during the school year. And I know you're struggling with that right now too. I never could read this much during a school year.
It depends for me. It comes in seasons. And I've talked about this on the podcast many times. A lot of what I'm reading during the school year used to only be school things or only be PD stuff, because that's all I had the bandwidth for. And then I eventually got to a point where it was like necessary in my life and for my own sanity that I have things that are just for me that I want to read, that I read for pleasure. And so like, I've got a mix of both that I'm talking about today. I've got, and the things I'm reading for school are things that I highly enjoy, which I'll explain in a moment after we get through this little intro moment. But it just basically, we will say this time and time again. Just do you. It's okay if you're not doing the things you used to do. It'll come back. It really will, or it won't, which means that time has passed, and that's okay.
Well, and keep listening. Like that's what we're here for. That's like, I'm name dropping Abby because we've just been working with her recently, but like find your people who can help fill that in for you. Because I think that's for me, like book recommendations. I'm not coming across those in my daily life. I have to like go find them. And hopefully we're giving you a little bit of that here on the podcast. I think this is our 3rd or 4th reading update this year.
Yeah, I think so too. And it is fun too, because for me, it makes me really take stock of like what I have been reading and what I plan to read. And I do feel more like myself. Like I feel like truly Marie when I am thinking about books and I'm surrounded by books and I am reading a lot, because I'm just that girl. Like I just am. And so embrace it and go with it, right? The more I think about it, the more I take stock of like, okay, so I read a lot of fantasy. Am I just going to keep going with that? Or do I maybe want to diversify a little bit? It just helps you keep thinking about it.
You also get to hear Marie and I talk about like how we think we might read each other's books and then we don't.
And then we never do. Ever. Literally ever.
Almost. We try.
Yeah. No, but it's okay. Hey, some of you are here for the Amanda stuff. Some of you are here for the Marie stuff. And some of you are right down the middle. So if you tell us how to find the middle, maybe we will someday, but we probably won't. You know what time it is, Amanda?
Nope.
It's time to cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a teacher from Southern California.
Join us at bravenewteaching.com to find out more about our courses, festivals, and get every episode's show notes.
We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show. All right, Amanda, I am interested to hear. I've heard you talk about a couple of the books that are on your list that you've already read since our last update, but I want to hear again in fresh ears. What have you been reading since our last update?
All My Rage. All My Rage. And I feel like All My Rage is the rage right now.
I 100%. Yes. That's actually, you know what? That is one from your list that I will read because it's on its way. It's on its way to my house.
And it's on its way to your classroom. This is, okay, so Sabaa Tahir wrote this beautiful story. It's called All My Rage. I don't know why it's not in front of me at the moment, but all I have to say is like, there's a reason everyone's talking about it. This to me is going to be, I feel like Sabaa Tahir, this book is going to become the next Long Way Down.
Okay.
Like
You've
it's
said
going
this
to be,
before. Yes.
It's going to be a YA book that starts to become so mainstream in classrooms. It will become a contemporary classic. I just know that it will. So what's the rage? Okay. So the story goes like this. I'll tell a very brief version. We will link, of course, all of the bookshop.org goodies in the show notes. Yep. There should be no surprise here, alternating narrators, which we all know that I love and is very trendy. I feel like I didn't even go looking for it, but there's alternating narrators. We really do have a main character, and she is going through a series. No, they're all main characters. I take that back. It's really not. I tend to focus on the central female. I think that's a me thing.
Yeah.
But she's not the only one.
What's cool about that though, is that then there's something for multiple readers or like types of reader, right? To connect with.
Yes. So we have one of our protagonists, and she is a refugee from Pakistan. She was rescued from an earthquake by her uncle. Her entire village in Pakistan was annihilated. And so her uncle got to the site, found her as a baby and brought her to America and has been raising her. But you know that something's off about their relationship. There's something that's just not quite right. Our other main character is her best friend, her male best friend. The story begins when you find out that she kind of confessed her love for him and he denied her. And so they're working through the awkwardness of trying to stay friends, even though she's I totally love you. And he's well, and they're trying to stay friends.
Yeah.
Also at the very beginning of the novel, this boy, so they've grown up together, right? They're childhood best friends. His mom, who the main character female calls auntie, right? They're very close. She dies, right? She has, I believe, liver disease, or she was on dialysis. And so she passes away from the beginning. So the story is interwoven stories about grief, definitely deep-seated, untreated grief and anger and how that's coming out. It's a coming of age story. These young people are getting ready to go to college. They're waiting to hear back from applications. They're trying to figure out what's next in my life. The male character is trying to figure out how they're going to keep their motel business alive now that the mom has passed away. So there's just so many cool stories interconnecting here, and it will take you on a ride. It's beautifully written. So when I say this is I am predicting this, the next Long Way Down, is because the literary merit is so there. The high interest is there. The real life story of engaging things teenagers are going to love is there. It's so teachable and so enjoyable at the same time. It's beautiful.
Yay.
Did I oversell it? I hope I didn't oversell it.
You didn't.
I didn't do much research before I read. I just kind of sat down and got into it, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Well, and I've seen it all over social media, because that is where I get a lot of my own book recommendations is from social media. It's from Book Talk and Bookstagram and all of that.
Yes.
Okay. So the books that I have read are not necessarily books lately. They are scripts actually, since our last update. Anyways, I know I've said it on here, but I just like for clarity's sake, I am teaching drama again this year at my school, and I'm teaching English at my school. And so I am going to be like co-directing and helping to produce multiple shows in the coming season. We are going to be putting on, at least in this first term, the first 2 quarters, we're going to put on a fall play and a fall musical. And so that is what I've been reading over and over and over again. I've actually read 2 plays in the last couple of weeks. One that I was rereading, it's called Noises Off. It's a pretty, like if you are a theater person, you generally know Noises Off. It's a really small cast. It is a farce. It is a fast-paced comedy. In the spring, I was like, yes, my students are so ready for this. This is going to be great. They're really talented. And then I like let myself forget that this was kids in May. And then as I was rereading it to get ready for kids in August, I was like, I cannot believe I'm about to throw this like, highly technical play at kids in August, like with British sensibilities. And these American kids post-COVID, it was all of these things. Read that play, said, oh my gosh, I still love this. Not right for my kids right now. And then I went back to one of my favorite plays. It is called The Complete Works of William Shakespeare Abridged, and it is written by the Reduced Shakespeare Company. The Reduced Shakespeare Company is a 3-man troupe. What are their names? Adam something and something. Daniel, Adam, and Jess, I believe. If you go on YouTube, and we will link them in the show notes, these videos, to a recording of the original trio performing pieces of The Complete Works of William Shakespeare Abridged. They do a hilarious slapstick, like just romp through all of the works of William Shakespeare. It's so good. They all play multiple roles. They do the tragedies, the comedies, the histories. It's fantastic. We are going to produce that this fall. Actually, by the time this comes out, we're like knee deep in production. And I think it's going to be just right for my kiddos. So like my reading experience right now, while Amanda was talking about how this is going to be, great in classrooms, this is actually my text for the first quarter for my advanced production class. They are going to learn so many cool things about just like the art of comedy, physical comedy, spoken comedy, like the cadence at which you can land a joke. And like, I'm very excited to teach them all of these things and to like just bring the joy of Shakespeare to our campus, because so as I was asking students, I was like, okay, we have a few different choices. What do you guys want to look at? And they were like, we think Shakespeare. And I was like, seriously? That's surprising to me. They said, yeah, because by the time, like 3/4 of the school has read some Shakespeare. So like, they'll at least be able to connect with the Romeo and Juliet bit, which is the opening of the show. Well, the opening of the show is like a little prologue. And then there's Romeo and Juliet. That's what you can find on YouTube. And it is so funny. And I highly suggest this as a quick read. I mean, it's a play. So you could read it cover to cover in 2 hours, And
oh my God, I love it.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
I am conjuring. I can feel the listeners right now. They want to ask this too. I would love for you to put on a mic and record one of those classes. Like I want to hear. I want to hear
me directing
comedy. I want to hear you teach comedy. Okay. Really? I mean, YouTube would be weird because you can't put your students on there and like. But if you mic'd yourself for one of those lessons, that would be such a blast to listen. Like I feel like we get like listen in on it.
Let's do it.
It's a request. A request from listeners.
Listener request.
Listeners, you need to
long-time listener, first-time caller. Yeah.
I think it'll be fascinating to like listen in on your class. I would love that.
I'm all in. I'll do it. Well, and like the cool thing about stuff like this class, this production class, right? It's the kids that are dedicated to the drama program. And they want to be a part of all of the things, because then we're doing a musical, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I want to hear about your next thing because it's another script. Yeah. Listen, people, I'm just reading scripts about getting back to my roots. This is my theater roots. And these are fun too. Like if you put on your teacher brain outside of the drama classroom, it's fun to just bring in things like if you teach an English class where you do Romeo and Juliet, why not bring in the scene that acts out Romeo and Juliet and see, what kids can do with it? Like, It's just a fun way to diversify what's going on in your classroom. And it's a fun read for nerds like me.
Wow.
And I've read it so many times and rereading it again. I'm still like giggling to myself like an idiot.
Oh, well, then it must be good.
Then it must be good.
Okay, so mine, they're not really in a very logical order for recording,
It's
so whatever.
okay.
I'm just going to keep going. I recently finished another book by Luis Alberto Urrea. You might know him from Into the Beautiful North, The Devil's Highway. He's actually from Naperville, which is where I was born and not born. I was raised. I was born in New Jersey, but he lives close by, and I really think I should probably do an interview with him because he's a big deal author. Like he's really amazing. And his most recent release is a book called Goodnight, Irene. And I did recommend it to Marie. This is a book that Marie won't read, but I think that she would love.
Maybe I will.
No, but maybe you won't. You know, it's a very okay. So premise: historical fiction. This is the story of two women who are dissatisfied with life as it is, and they join the war effort during World War II. So they leave their homes. One's from an Indiana farm, the other's from a very urban, classy upbringing in New York City, and they both say, screw it, we don't want our lives like this. We're going to go do something crazy and, you know, whatever, travel. So they go to, you know, their training, and basically what the call was for, as a branch of the Red Cross, these women were called to basically drive tanks. They're food trucks, but they're tanks, and they're serving coffee and donuts to the troops. And so they kind of go from this transformation of, you know, just serving coffee and donuts to being in it with the soldiers, and like having to, as women do, and as teachers do, and as moms do, be the ones to be solid while everyone else is falling apart, and to provide and to be something comforting amidst turmoil. And like there are so many layers of that throughout the story. I love that we get, like, you get the story from New York to DC to coming across the Atlantic, landing in Europe, multiple cities and countries in Europe during the war, multiple interactions with like soldiers. There's love, there's romance, there's bombing, there's all kinds. It's all over the place, which I absolutely adored. And there's mental health discussions, there's political discussions, there's gender discussions. There are so many cool things happening. And I just found myself very surprised because it was historical fiction. It was a war novel, which war novels I would not put on like my love to read list, but I don't think I really understood that till I was pretty deep. And then I was so in love with the characters that I was like, tell me more.
Plus, you have been particularly into historical fiction lately, like I've noticed in...
I have. I think it's all Ruta's fault.
Yes. It's not a complete, you know, like turn from memoir, but like you've definitely taken a little detour a little bit.
I do blame Ruta Sepetys because I think Salt of the Sea is what kicked it off.
Absolutely.
And then it just kind of kept going. But I really picked it up because of him.
Yeah.
And Urrea's other books dealt much more with the Mexican border. So he is mixed. He is half Mexican and half whatever his mom is, European. And so this story, that's the punchline. This is the story of his mom. Or his grandma. Right, maybe it's his mother or his grandmother. Now I'm like losing my track because the story spans these women's lives from like their 20s till when they're grandparents. So like you get this like multi-generational, that's Elizabeth Acevedo's fault with family lore. So like it's like all the generations of their lifetime, and like, you know, how do you come back from what they've experienced? And you get all of that. The novel's very long.
That's cool though. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those that I feel like I would like. It would just take me like making myself starting it, and then starting it, I'd be good to go. Okay. Well, tell me, you've got more that you have read than I have read. So let's keep going through your list a little bit until I get into my next script.
Yeah. The other two are short because they were good, but they weren't like those first two were my 5 stars. I was dipping my toe into some fantasy.
I know.
I read Lore by Alexandra Bracken, and this is a series. So I'm thinking about like kids, classroom library situation. And I actually really liked Lore. I thought Lore was probably 100 pages too long, but knowing that it's lore and it's mythological in nature, like that kind of checks out that it was a little too long. But I didn't hate it. And I actually really, really liked the main character. I liked her voice. It was definitely YA, but it didn't read with that kind of that voice. Like there are some YA voices where like certain phrases are repeated over and over again.
Yes,
like
I know what you mean.
It was not like that. And the fantasy was palatable. So there are definitely two different worlds, which, all right, okay, soaking it in here. And the gods and goddesses of Olympus are kind of like for every 7 years, there's kind of like this giant clash and they try to sort out who's in charge and the power and blah, blah, blah. So like we find ourselves like in this transition period and trying to figure out like, right, who's going to take power back into like that next stretch of 7 years. So it's like the worlds are blending together between New York City and Mount Olympus. And like Athena is taking on human form and she's leading us through this whole, it's a battle kind of, there are a lot of battles, which to me are hard to read, but because I'm kind of like, just, well, what happens at the end? But that's how I am in an action movie. I'm like, I don't care about the action. Like just what's the result? But it was good. I think kids would really like it. I might read the second one, but it was good. I'm glad it was not a waste of time. It was like a 4-star read for me. And then I picked up, I loved Glass Castle. I especially loved listening to Glass Castle. You know me as an Audible girl here. I read Jeanette Wall's newest story that is a fiction story. This is not about her life, but you definitely can feel it. And it's called Hang the Moon. It was slow to start.
At which I feel like memoirs often are.
But this one's not. This is fiction.
It's not a memoir. That's right.
It's not a memoir. So like I know her from memoir, from Glass Castle. And this is her second dip into fiction.
Okay.
And so the premise is of a young girl growing up in Appalachia and like she's a tomboy and she's kind of navigating the world as a woman in her time. And it kind of goes from her childhood through her adulthood, wherein she basically becomes a bootlegger runner. Like she's driving the cars. And it's like during the Prohibition era and she's a leader. It's like this young girl grows up to be a leader amongst men, amongst clans and, mobs. And there's a lot involved in this like 1920s look at very rural South. And it's very, very interesting. And there are parts that are better than others.
Sure.
I thought that it was a little slow for me, but my loan expired at the end, and it was slow, but I needed to know how it ended, and I had to wait to renew my loan for like the last few chapters, and it was torture. So this was a good 4-star read for me. I really liked it. If you liked Glass Castle and you like Jeanette Walls and you like that kind of that slice of life that she presents, this is a very cool option. I don't know about teaching it, but definitely it would work for supplements. I think excerpts would work really, really well. A lot of the chapters can stand alone. It was awesome. Same with Goodnight Irene. I think there are a lot of sections that could stand alone powerfully. So,
okay.
Yeah, those are my big updates. And I'm not going to bother with all the ones that disappointed me, but I am going to say, the one that did disappoint me that I texted you about, I need to take it back. Oh. The last Quintista was disappointing.
Oh no.
You guys, I texted Marie and I was like, this book has everything. And then maybe for our next update, I can go through why I was so disappointed, but
okay.
I didn't finish it.
Oh.
I returned it.
Well, that's juicy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our little middle segment of the podcast. I am cracking up because today's segment is actually scheduled to be a happy hour teacher shout out. We have 3 teachers to shout out, and one of the 3 just sent us a voicemail that was leaving me in stitches. So before we get into it, this segment is brought to you by Happy Hour, the members only side of the Brave New Teaching podcast, where we talk about all things serious and lesson planning and all things ridiculous. So we want to give a shout out to 3 amazing teachers. I was just dying because this listener, her name is Elizabeth. She sent us a voicemail that was a follow-up to one of our happy hour episodes about when we encounter students in the wild, right? In air quotes. We put that in air quotes. And we shared our stories on happy hour, and Marie and I were just like in stitches sharing this ridiculous story. And Elizabeth sent us a voicemail and told us all about a time that her husband actually found his students in the wild at a very unlikely event. So I love you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for being a listener and part of this podcast experience. We love talking to you and have loved getting to know you. Thank you for all your hard work in Camp BNT. And speaking of Camp BNT, we had another incredible fan of the podcast and friend of ours, because I've gotten to meet this person in real life. Elise Dickerson, we wanted to send a huge shout out to you. You are an incredible human. We love you. Thank you for being a member of Happy Hour. Thank you for being part of the podcast. Thank you for working with us this summer. If you caught any of the stunning graphics over in Camp BNT, or if you're watching the reels over on Instagram, Elise is like 99% responsible for all of that graphic design. She does incredible work, and she has just kind of been freelancing for a little while with us, and we just love her as a human. She's an incredible, smart teacher and really talented in marketing. So who would have thought? Thank you. Thank you to Elizabeth and Elise for helping us so much this summer at camp. We adore you. And we also want to send a shout out to a brand new happy hour member, Reggie. Reggie is from Wisconsin. He's not too far from me. And Reggie, I have not forgotten that we needed to have coffee sometime and get together. So welcome to happy hour. We're so glad that you've joined us. And anybody else who wants to hop in and join us in happy hour, it is a good time. It is a $5 a month commitment to hang out with us for as many or as few months as you want during the year. We love having you over there. We have 15 minutes of the podcast in addition to what you're getting already here for free every single week, totaling that magical 1 hour. And we also put out a resource for you every month to use in your classroom. In the past, we've done resources on evidence trackers, rubrics, jigsaws. We did a whole month on To Kill a Mockingbird. We have done a month with a guest. Abby Gross was just with us, and her resource was featured in Happy Hour. We looked at her brochures for helping students choose their books for independent reading. There are so many cool things over on Happy Hour that we would love to have you, and we would love to give you a shout out too. So who knows, if you join Happy Hour, maybe you'll be the next teacher that we give a shout out to. All right, now back to the show.
Alrighty, let's jump back in. I have one more thing that I read, which I was talking about before, which is another script to share. And then let's talk about what we plan to read. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it.
So the musical that we are going to be doing this fall is the Addams Family musical.
Oh, I want to come watch it.
So excited. We're going to do it on the weekend before Halloween. We're going to it's a big collaboration with we have a brand new choir teacher at my school, and he's amazing, and he's done the show before. It's just going to be fun. Like, I'm excited for the community outreach part of it. I'm excited for the visual arts classes to do a whole lobby display, because like the imagery with the Addams Family period, but then especially like the musical is, it's all like family portraits, and like it's
so adorable
to see what kids in the fine art and like visual art classes come up with. It's going to be really fun. And so I have been both reading and listening to, like, I've been reading the script, the libretto, and I've been listening to the Broadway recordings, which are a little bit different, but like, I can't get enough Nathan Lane in my life.
Oh my gosh, never.
Like, he's just so good. And so, I mean, he starts off with the opening number. Oh, it's so good. And I'm excited. And it's going to kind of bridge from the kids that are in the play, like the Shakespeare play. They're going to take a lot of that like fast paced and just like feeling the timing of comedy and plop it into a musical. And I think it's going to be such a great growth experience for them. But for me, I love reading scripts, like I said before, and reading through this musical and having the music just like playing in my house all the time is just really fun and exciting. And it gets me excited about Halloween-y and all of it.
Speaking of Nathan Lane, did you ever get into Only Murders in the Building?
Yes. And I realized I kind of let it drop off like at the end of the school year. I was behind and watching, but I keep seeing on like my Instagram feed all of the ads for the new one. And I'm like, okay, I need to get through season 1 and then season 2 and then here we go. But I also need to finish
season 3, but
I need to finish my rewatch of Glee as well. I mean, there's like a lot.
There's a lot.
I'm very busy. My dance card is very full.
What are you going to read?
I am going to read. Okay, this is like super trendy. I may have talked about this in one of our past book updates. I just never got to it. I'm going to read Fourth Wing by what's her name? Rebecca Yarros. Okay. Fourth Wing is taken book social media by freaking storm, especially earlier in the summer.
Yes.
It was everywhere. And I was just doing other things. I wasn't quite ready yet. And now I'm ready. So I'm excited to read it because I have gotten to a point where I am now waiting for the other books in the other series that I'm reading to come out. And everybody, including our friend Jenna Copper, has said, because she and I are always like on with these books that we like, she likes it. So I have big hopes for Fourth. It comes today, people.
I just watching out the window. I placed a hold in Libby, but I don't think I'm going to get the book until like 2028. So there's a long wait. But I can wait because I don't really know what I'm waiting for. So but I will read it. I will listen to it. I will see what I think. I'm not going to.
I've taken the jump and just bought it because enough people who I am aligned with liked it. And so I can just kind of go with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like all of the fantasy things that I need. Okay, what are you going to read?
Well, I'm going to share my latest book haul because I don't know if I'm going to read them right away. It takes a very specific season of life for me to sit and read a book. I am definitely, as we've said 1,000 times, in an audiobook season of life, but I still buy books all the time. So there's a really cute little bookshop downtown, in one of the little downtowns by my house. And so I picked up 4. I picked up Goodnight Irene because I had already listened to it and they had an advanced reader copy sale. And I got it for like 30% off. So I was like, yes, because you will see close reading passages from there from me coming soon. So I got that. I picked up 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. Do you know this?
I have seen the cover at Barnes & Noble, but I do not know it.
Okay, so I think this is like along the veins of like Madeline, what's her name, who wrote Circe. Okay, so from the Trojan women whose fates now lie in the hands of the Greeks to the Amazon princesses who fought Achilles on their behalf, from Penelope awaiting the return of Odysseus to the 3 goddesses whose feud started it all, these are the stories of the women whose lives, loves, and rivalries are indelibly imprinted on history's most infamous war. A women's epic powerfully imbued with new life, 1,000 Ships puts the women, girls, and goddesses at the center of the Western world's greatest tale ever told.
Well, you're just like all about the Greek mythology, eh?
I mean, so separate. I mean, I read that a long time, but yes. I mean, maybe. Let's see. Historical fiction. Yeah, I guess it is a trend. Okay, here's one that's not part of my trend. I bought Going by Coastal. This is a YA one.
Okay.
I know you've seen this cover. It's the cover is of the one girl in the center and like her body is split in half. It's by Dahlia Adler. There's more than one path to happily ever after.
Dun, dun, dun.
Natalia Fox has 24 hours to make the biggest choice of her life. Stay home in New York City for the summer with her dad and finally screw up the courage to talk to the girl she's been crushing on, or spend it with her basically estranged mom in LA, knowing this is the best chance she has to fix their relationship, even if she doesn't want to.
That sounds good. That sounds like one that my students would like, actually.
That's kind of why I picked it up. Also, the cover's beautiful. I love... Yes. It gave me Clap When You Land vibes. I think it was because of the split cover. And it's kind of beautiful.
And we'll see.
And the final one is from someone that you know, from author of Mexican Gothic. I got The Daughter of Dr. Moreau.
I want to read that.
Yeah. So I got The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. This one is, like I said, we've talked about Mexican Gothic on here a couple of times. But the premise, guess what? 2 narrators. We've got Carlotta Moreau is a young woman growing up on a remote and luxuriant estate, safe from the conflict and strife of the Yucatan Peninsula, the only daughter of a researcher who is either a genius or a madman. Love that already. Right, Frankenstein, thank you.
Right.
Then we've got Montgomery Lawton, a melancholic overseer with a tragic past and a propensity for alcohol, an outcast who assists Dr. Moreau with his experiments, which are financed by the Lizaldes, owners of a magnificent hacienda and plentiful coffers.
Okay.
And then there's the hybrids, the fruits of the doctor's labor, destined to blindly obey their creator and remain in the shadows, a motley group of part human, part animal monstrosities. This is going to work in your monsters unit. This is giving me kind of the opera vibes, Frankenstein vibes. This actually just rereading that just moved it up higher on the TBR.
Excellent. I love it.
Also, the cover is gorgeous.
It is. The covers for those books are so good. I love it. I love it.
We should holler at Sylvia Moreno Garcia.
Holler.
I think she should come on the podcast.
I agree. Okay, let's do it. Let's will it into existence. All right, friends. We hope that we have created a little moment for you to think about your own reading, TBR, listening even, because it's just fun, right? Like, we are all about making sure that you do the things you love no matter what time of year it is, especially as a teacher, and like getting into the practice of doing what you want to do so that you feel like yourself. And for us, that is reading the books that make us feel good, or the plays or the musicals or. So make sure that you head to the show notes for this episode so that you can take a look at our Amazon lists, our bookshop.org lists. Amanda will have her Audible recommendations there as well. And yeah, we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a great week at school.